Hi everyone. Today's presentation will be on interviewing skills and how to be successful in a future interview. Okay, so first we have the pre-interview materials. So first we have the application or the job description. So when you're applying to jobs, you'll definitely want to make sure that you are reviewing keywords in the job description and also saving that job description so that way you can always reference back to it in the future. We also have your resume. So you want to make sure that you are able to tailor your resume and reflect on all of your experiences in relation to your position. You also want to have an online presence review. So this could include Googling yourself, making sure you are posting appropriate pictures on social media, and also building a LinkedIn profile. Next, we have the types of interviews. So the first one is going to be in-person interviews. So for in-person interviews, you want to make sure you are getting to your location 10 to 15 minutes early. That way you can find room for parking and you can make sure that you're at the right location. For phone interviews, you want to make sure that you are speaking through the phone and smiling as well through the phone. Phone can be tricky just because the phone interviews, you can't really see the employer. So you do want to make sure that you are smiling through the phone and really trying to express your enthusiasm as much as possible. Virtual interviews could be on Zoom or Microsoft Teams. And the virtual interviews, you do want to make sure that you are logging on at least 10 minutes early. That way you can make sure that you don't have any internet issues and that your camera and microphone are working. And then the last one here is an automated interview. So this could be a video. Some employers will make sure that you are using videos to do interviewing. So you do want to make sure that you are abiding by the guidelines and making sure that you are speaking clearly, your camera's on, and that your video abides to the guidelines of what the employer has in the description. Okay, now we're on interview prep. So here's some common interviewing mistakes that we're going to go over today. So the first one is going to be not elaborating in your responses. So a lot of students do have trouble with this one. So it is important to elaborate in your responses and go into detail as much as you can. The next one is lack of preparation and research. So you do want to make sure that you are researching the company beforehand and also preparing for it. It is good to go over the mission statement and also the vision statement, which we'll be getting into later on in the presentation. Another one is lack of awareness of body language. So you do want to make sure you're making eye contact with the employer and that you are dressed professionally. And the last one is negative comments about others. So for the negative comments about others, you just want to make sure that you are speaking about your prior employment in a positive light and that you're not making any negative comments about other people. Okay, so next is conducting research on the employer. So when you're conducting research on the employer you're interviewing for, you do want to go over the history of the employer, also the mission statement or their values. It's easy to find this on the employer's website, so you could always go online, check out their website, check out their social media page. You also might want to make sure you go on and look at their services or maybe their locations. Also, maybe if they've gotten any recognition or awards, that's also a great idea that you can talk about even in the interview. All right, and then conducting a self-assessment. So you want to make sure that you do have some of these skills maybe in your resume, or you might even want to talk about them in your interview. But some of these include communication skills, critical thinking, teamwork, and professionalism. So these are all great skills to have. So if you have teamwork skills, definitely you'll want to talk about that in your interview. You can also include that on your resume. leadership, technology skills. So if you've been like the president of a club or the vice president, those are great leadership skills to include. Technology. So if you know like Microsoft or Adobe or CapCut, those are great technology skills that you can add on a resume. Of course, we have equity and inclusion, and also career and self-development skills. So for your interview plan, you want to make sure you know where you are going. Be on time, also known as early. And also print copies of your resume. You never know how many people are going to be interviewing you, so you do want to make sure you do bring more than one copy of your resume. That way you can give each copy of your resume to every employer that is interviewing you. You also want to make sure you have a folder or a paper and a pen to take down notes or write down questions. And you also want to make sure you are dressed for success. So now we're on the types of interview questions. So we have, of course, personal questions. Tell me about yourself is a very common interview question that you will get asked on pretty much any interview you do. So you do want to make sure you are prepared to tell the company about yourself. We also have experience and knowledge in the field. So what do you know about a skill or a topic? That's also a very good question they might also ask you. For strengths and weaknesses, they might ask you about what are your biggest strengths or your biggest weaknesses. So it is important to go into detail and talk about what your biggest strength is. So for example, if your biggest strength is leadership, don't just say leadership and end it there, but really go into more detail on why leadership is your biggest skill. So it could be maybe you took the initiative to start a new club, or maybe you're the president of a club, and that's a great example to show the employer. Okay, and then behavioral-based questions and situational-based questions are also going to be very important types as well. So interview questions and follow-up. So the first question, like I mentioned before, for tell me about yourself, you're kind of going to be developing your impact statement. So you want to explain to the employer who you are, your skills and experience, and what you want to do for the company. And then here's another tip for the behavioral and situational based questions. So this is called the STAR method. So it stands for situation, task, action, and result. So you want to make sure that you are going to be doing effective storytelling when you're answering these questions. So of course you have the situation where you're providing context and background, the task where you can describe the problem and challenges, then go into the action, explaining what you did and how you solved the problem, and then always ending with the result or the outcome of that situation. So this is going to be like a little guide on how to answer those behavioral and situational interview questions. Okay, so what is a weakness or area of growth that you have? So if you were approached this question, it's important when you're answering questions about weaknesses to make sure that you are able to kind of show a positive light about it. So for example, instead of saying a weakness I have is that I tend to procrastinate, you might want to change that and say an area I am always focused on improving is becoming more efficient with my time management. So that way, instead of just ending on a negative, you're showing a positive and how you're working on improving your weakness. And then usually at the end of the interview, they will ask you, is there anything else about yourself that you would like to share? Now you always want to answer this question and just tell them why you're qualified and reiterate your interest in the position. The employer will also ask you if you have any questions for them at the end of the interview. So it is important to come prepared with at least 2 to 3 questions to ask the employer. That way you can determine if the role is a good fit for you, and you can also have time to clarify the rest of what the interview process will look like. And then after the interview, you always want to make sure you are following up. So it's important to send emails to all interviewers. So make sure you get their emails at the end of the interview. And in this email, you want to reiterate your thank you and your interest in the position or the company. It's important to keep the message concise and focused, and you're really just going to want to be thanking the interviewer for their time, and you can also ask them any additional questions in this email as well. So the purpose of interviewing is really you're going to be evaluating the company. So it's important to interview when you're doing this because you can determine your fit with the company. It gives you opportunity to gauge your qualities and your skills and your interests. Okay, and feel free to connect with us, to connect with CDS on Instagram, also our website, and our LinkedIn. Thank you for watching.